What's up, everyone? My name is John Lee. I am the Grow Pastor here at Gateway South down in South Austin. And it is so good to see you today. Thanks so much for joining us. We are here for our live Spilling the Beans video series Q&A. We have none other than our financial guru, Spilling the Beans video series star, Carrie. What's up, Carrie? How's it going?
Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. Like, this is my passion. Like, let's geek out. Let's talk about it.
All right, now are you ready to take home an Emmy for those videos
I'm ready.
that you put out?
I'm ready.
You killed it.
It was so fun. Gosh, I mean, like, the outtakes, surely. But even the stuff that made it in was just excellent. I mean, Aaron walked outside of a bookcase. I mean, and yeah, I mean,
Nothing better than that.
and shout out to our friends at the New. Thank you so much for hosting us at your Highland campus location. It was delicious.
Thank you so much. And I want to see that blooper reel of the
Yeah.
videos.
I
I'm
don't know
sure
about that.
that is gold. But thanks again so much for joining us for this live Q&A. So first of all, why did we do this whole Anchor Spilling the Beans video series? Well, we know that this has been the year of our dreams. No, I'm just kidding. We know that this has been such a challenging and difficult year for all of us, for all of you at home, and for all of us here, for Carrie and I. And, you know, in the midst of these unique and challenging circumstances that we're all in, with social distancing and not being able to see each other in person and interact with each other as often as we used to, we still wanted to let you know, you who are in your 20s and 30s in the Austin area, that we are still here. We are still here. We are thinking about you. We love you. We care about you. And even in this unique season and these challenging circumstances that we're all in, we still want to interact with you. And we still wanted to create a way to engage with you. And what's better than doing that around a topic that is so practical, so relevant for those of us who are in our 20s and 30s, and honestly, really challenging. And that's the topic of money management. So that's exactly why we're doing this Q&A today, is because we wanted to give you an opportunity to ask whatever questions you might have to our financial expert, Carrie, about money, about financial management. If you've seen any of the Spilling the Beans videos we've put out, they're around these specific financial topics like budgeting, savings, retirement, etc., etc. By the way, if you haven't seen them yet, they are still available and accessible for you to see. You can catch those videos right here on our Anchor South Facebook page. But we know that despite, even if you have seen those videos, you still might have some questions. And we wanted to create a space for you to be able to ask those questions today. And that's really the heart of Anchor, our Anchor network here at Gateway South. If you've never heard of Anchor, the Anchor network is a community at Gateway Church for specifically 20 and 30-year-olds in the Austin area. Whether you're married, you're single, you have a family, it does not matter. Anyone who is in their 20s and 30s, we have this community for you to experience community, to find friendship, to be able to grow in our faith together, and to be able to serve each other. And again, that's exactly why we did this Q&A today, to be able to hopefully help you around the topic of financial management. Well, without further ado, Carrie, ready to jump into our Q&A?
I am ready, but one caveat.
Yes.
The legalese.
Of course.
By participating in this Q&A, you are agreeing that neither Gateway nor myself are liable or responsible for your financial situations. That's it. We just have to take care of the lawyers, and make sure we say that. But I also just want to share my heart with you guys that, we're going to give you guys some general answers to general questions. Each question is specific in your financial situation. When somebody texts me a question, I give them 10 questions back because I want to know the context. There's so many dependencies, around that. So we're going to try to provide some general useful information to be of service in any way that we can, because we know that there's so much wrapped up in our finances, and there's just I don't know where to begin. And so that's what we're trying to do, is we're really trying to help our Anchor community. By the way, you all have got your own groove, you're marching to your own drum, and you're really making it in the world and breaking all of the rules, and I love that, and I celebrate that, and I just love supporting this community, because you guys are just, I'm not in that.
Oh, you are.
Honorary,
That's
not
right.
technically.
That's right.
So, it's just like, you guys make me feel alive, and serving you in this way and providing whatever help I can, nothing gets my juices flowing better. I love it. You're gonna have to cut me off at some point, because I'll do this all night.
Well, we'll probably love it. And we love you, Carrie, and we've been so blessed to have your wisdom and your knowledge through our videos that we've created and posted so far, and we're so grateful that we get to hear more of your wisdom and knowledge here tonight during our Q&A. So let's jump in, shall we? All right. Well, our first question from the day, and by the way, if you are tuning in and you want to send in your questions, please do so. We want to hear from you. Just do not send in any prank questions. No jokes about what we ate today or anything. What I ate today was not very exciting. It's like a peanut butter jelly sandwich. I mean, nothing wrong with PB&J.
I'm kicking it, PB&J. All that.
Actually, if you want to send in a few joke questions, that probably will make Carrie and I laugh. So it's all good. All right.
I don't know if you need any help in that.
That's right. Well, let's jump into our first question. Okay, Carrie. So, growing up, we didn't really talk about money in my family. I'm embarrassed to say that I don't really know where to start to manage my personal finance. How would you speak to that?
So first thing I would tell you, and thank you for your honesty and vulnerability. It's a hard thing to admit, like I got no skills here. I would tell you first of all, there is no shame in anything around our money. I think society kind of puts that on, around that, but it's the stigma and like, oh, don't talk about money, don't share how much you make, or don't tell them if you're in debt. Like there's so much attached to it and so much negativity, and I would tell you that shame is not of God. And so I would just first of all release that. The fact that you're here asking a question means that you're winning and looking to take a step forward in partnership with God when it comes to your finances. And so that's step one. Just release that fear, release the shame. And the second step I would tell you is just basically start to educate yourself on some of the basics. You don't have to know all of the ins and outs of investing or anything like that. Understanding the basics, which you learned in second grade math of addition and subtraction, and knowing how much you have in your account, creating that awareness, and my favorite hashtag, do the math. Those old-fashioned check registers. Carlos was talking about it at Norn on Sunday, how we used to write checks, well, we still do sometimes, and keeping a check register, really being able to manage what you have in your account and be a good steward of that is a phenomenal place to start. And then really kind of start to expand into not only managing it, but also doing a spending plan and understanding what your savings goals are.
Yeah.
Basics.
I love that. And I love how, right off the bat with our time today, you dispelled the stigma and the fear around money, because let's be real, we're all human. It can be kind of awkward, and there can be a lot of shame around this topic of finances. And that's exactly what if you want to dispel that, that's what we want to do today. We want to take that away, because it doesn't have to be that way.
Right. Yeah, and there are a lot of people who, during all of this situation, have lost jobs, and that, at no fault of your own, have been in a situation where you've gotten behind on bills. Don't let the shame draw you in. Just ask for help and find a way out, and look for another job. Obviously, but just don't buy into any of that, and really know that that was just a situation. That's not who you are, and that's not how God sees you. So just trust that.
Yeah, that's such a good response. Thanks for sharing that. All right, we got a live question coming into us from Lo Hall. Lo, what's up? What's up? Thank you for the question. And her question is, how often should I check my credit score?
Oh my gosh, I love that question. So, oh my gosh, that's so good. Millennials, quite honestly, are obsessed with their credit I don't know a millennial who doesn't have Credit Karma on their phone.
Credit score, that's like the score from a video game, right?
Roll it back to the basics. So your credit score just makes up essentially how much credit you have, how much credit you use, and your on-time payments are the primary factors as part of that, and your history. And people use that number. Oh, how we love to measure ourselves. Ooh. No. So that credit score is not who you are, but how often should you check it? It depends on, you get one credit score for free every year, so you should not be paying for your credit score. Companies and apps like Credit Karma have, so you can check it all the time, and it's kind of an ongoing thing, but that's usually not the 3 different credit reporting agencies. So in general, unless you are about to make a big purchase, like you want a high credit score in order to purchase a house, or you're about to get a car loan, all of those things, your credit score is incorporated into that. Even your insurance, I'm sad to say, they look at your credit score. So having a good credit score is an awesome goal,
Right.
but you don't need to obsess about it unless you're about to make a big purchase of a car, a home, or going for an apartment. They're going to check your credit score for sure.
Yeah.
So just be mindful of it. If a creditor of some kind pulls your credit, that does ding your score. So if you're applying for a whole bunch of things, that is going to drop your credit score, but it's going to come back up. So
That was so insightful.
great
Definitely,
question. But
yeah.
don't use it to grade yourself.
No, I love that. No, that's true.
Yes.
We want to identify ourselves with only our credit score. And you just provided a lot of clarity for me on exactly what a credit score is, and now I know that it's not a video game score.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
something
yeah.
completely different.
Yeah.
Hey, we got another question from Kristen. Kristen says, what are some everyday tools we can use to help us with our finances? Example, a favorite budgeting app, etc., etc.
Good one. I
Yeah,
love
all
this.
right.
Come on, you guys have got a
Let's
quiz
go,
here.
let's
I love
go.
it. I love these questions. So there are a ton of budgeting apps out there. There's one that's called Every Dollar, and that's from Dave Ramsey, the financial guru that we tend to know through Financial Peace University. There is a paid version and a free version. Don't you dare pay for it. There's also another budgeting app called, I think it's My Everyday Budget or something like that, or Not Your Average Budget, something like that. But that one's a pretty popular one. I'm old school.
Yeah.
I have a spreadsheet.
Ooh,
And
spreadsheets.
sometimes I do paper.
Spreadsheets are helpful. Like papers, I still journal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So basically going through, and yeah, you know, I'm the same way.
Sell paper?
Yeah. So really being able, and I would just really answer your question with whatever way you're going to consistently use, do that. If you're going to be on a spreadsheet, one of my clients, she has the most beautiful budget spreadsheet I've ever seen. It's got all of these pastel colors, and it just is really refreshing. I still use paper.
It's okay. It's okay. Paper can be, artistic too.
Yeah, I'm just a visual person, so I have to there's something muscle memory that I have to write it down.
Yeah, but you bring up, I'm glad you mentioned that because I think it's important for each of us to find what works for us.
Yeah, and experiment, because it does take practice. Usually they say about 3 months of monthly budgeting is really when you start to get in a rhythm. That first month, you may want to go take a walk afterwards, just to kind of regroup. It can be challenging because you're looking at all of these numbers, and if you are not a numbers person, it can be emotionally overwhelming. And so really being able to just give yourself a bunch of grace that first time that you do it, and then you'll get into a rhythm, as with so many habits that we try to build in our lives, so just really being able to practice. So again, whatever works for you, lots of options. Here's one of the great premises that I try to live by. There is no right way.
Oh, it's not. You do you.
Yes.
You be you.
Yes.
So good.
Come
Thanks for
on.
that, Carrie.
Yeah.
Okay, I what is the best biblically based path for determining how to allocate money towards separate spousal endeavors? For example, one wants to spend on a hobby, one wants to spend on a vacation. How would you speak to that, Carrie?
Well, first of all, I feel highly unqualified to be able to speak to that because, like, to be able to reference it biblically, I'll go back to there's no right way. Mm-hmm. But it was Danny, right?
Danny, correct.
Yeah, I would say that really being able to pray about it, obviously to invite God into that conversation, and to really focus on some couple goals. Like, what do you guys want to be able to do as a couple? Like, do you want to be able to take a vacation? Do you want to get a dog and all of the expenses? I want a dog. Do you want to be able to have a home or want to be able to save for college for the kids? So there's a lot of different options as part of that. So get on the same page with your spouse around the goals that you want to have, and then really kind of work through the numbers and work through a couple of different scenarios. Like I don't think that there's anything in the Bible that says thou shalt split 50-50. I know enough about the biblical reference that there's not anything like that. Sorry, I think that's the new Carrie translation, the MCT.
Carrie's message.
Yeah, exactly. So I would just say that I don't know that there is a right way to be able to do that. First, take care of your basics. So cars and home and really being able to food and insurance and all of those things. So take care of your four walls is what we call that. So all of your basic needs, and then decide what's extra. Yeah. And also make sure that you put money set aside for your future and for savings.
Mm-hmm. And for your dog.
Yes!
You have a pet.
All the dogs!
Let's be honest. Requires money, but
they're just for children. They're like beta children.
That's right.
Yes.
There are babies. Thanks so much for that, Carrie. All right.
Thanks, Danny.
Audra says, should I consider life insurance about in my 20s and 30s age?
So, life insurance. This is a great question. Mm-hmm. Oh, come on now. Look at this crew.
I know. Y'all are rolling. Love the questions. Thank you so much for the questions.
Keep them coming.
Great questions.
So, Audra, the really simple answer is if anybody in your life depends on your income, that's when you need to consider life insurance. So, if you have somebody who is dependent on your income, like to pay the apartment or the mortgage or anything like that, it's critical that you have life insurance. And term life insurance is kind of where it's at. There's a lot of different options and kind of a deeper discussion around insurance, but it's really only about somebody who depends on your salary, because the insurance is to insure against your loss of income. So if you were to pass or become incapacitated and not be able to work, that term life insurance, and actually term insurance is really good. It's
my favorite word.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
So if you were to pass, that your loved one, your spouse, would be able to keep the home, keep the car, keep the lifestyle, to be able to pursue that. Otherwise, like, I don't have any kids, I don't have a spouse. Hey guys, how's it going? Hey. Sorry. If you don't have anybody who's dependent on your income, you do not need term life insurance. I would recommend a little bit of money set aside in case of an emergency and, things like burial fees, which I know that's morbid to talk about, but those are the facts as part of it. Yeah. Long answer, simple question, only if somebody's depending on your income.
Yeah.
Great question.
Excellent question. Excellent question. All right. Billy says, I've heard of avalanche and snowball for paying off debt. What's the best, quickest way to pay off debt while avoiding paying too much on interest?
Oh my gosh, I heart you, Billy. Because here's the thing. With this, so again, Dave Ramsey is kind of infamous, I'll say, for the snowball effect. And that snowball effect is to take the smallest debt that you have and to be able to pay that off first and build that momentum. I do like to take interest rates into consideration. And by the way, I'll tell you, you can negotiate those interest rates.
Oh, snaps.
Rainy,
Oh, snaps.
rainy
Negotiate.
day.
Love it.
Can you lower my interest rate? I've been a great customer, but you are charging me the biggest interest rate I've seen, 29%. I like to pull out of my chair, a third. And with those high interest rates, you're paying so much extra money towards interest as opposed to paying off your balance of the things that you bought.
Yeah.
So I would tell you that I'm snowballing is how I do recommend, but I do factor in interest rates, and there are certain situations that, and I actually did it as a college student or post-college, I got some 0% credit cards, and I applied for those, and I did that balance transfer game to pay off all of my college debt.
Yeah.
And, Dave Ramsey says no, but, I like Dave, sort of. I have to use my own best judgment, and I certainly recommend you do the same thing. I'm a huge fan of that, just to be able to knock those out. But some of those higher interest credit cards have big balances, and it's easy to get discouraged when you think about that big bad number. So just kind of think about a modified kind of approach. And again, talk to somebody, talk through it, work through the options. Hey, hashtag do the math. How do you like that? Hey!
Hashtag of the year. 2020, hashtag of the year. Love it. So, not to call anyone out, but just curious, what is the largest interest rate you've ever seen out there?
29%.
29?
29.99, so essentially 30%.
Yeah. Hey, at least some of us here are 29 years old.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good age, not a good interest rate. Whoosh.
That is hilarious. Thanks so much for that. All right, Bailey says, hi. What's up, Bailey?
Hey, Bailey.
Thanks for your question. How much should I be saving a month? I live close to paycheck and find it difficult to save. Love that question.
Bailey, keep going, first of all. Good on you for covering your bills every month. Feel good about that. Even though it's a little uncomfortable to kind of live paycheck to paycheck and know that, one kind of trip up could be a challenge of some kind. So the first step that we always recommend is $1,000. To put $1,000 into an emergency fund, and even if that is $50 a paycheck, for real, it will add up. And so I'm not a gamer, but it sounds like maybe you are.
Just Mario Kart.
Okay.
Or N64. The other ones, I don't even know that.
So the gamification of savings, there is something that kind of happens like momentum-wise.
Really?
Like, well, I'm gonna see this number grow, like, oh, I got 50, oh my gosh, I got 100. What, I got extra $30 this week, I'm gonna put that one and then set it aside. So just start the habit of taking that extra money and build that $1,000 emergency fund. And it needs to be liquid. And when I say liquid, I'm not talking necessarily about water, but I didn't even have this as a visual aid and prop. But having it accessible. So, you don't want to go invest that money. That's there in case of an emergency. And just a quick test. Is a sale on Amazon an emergency?
I literally was about to ask you about that. Could you clarify emergency? So like Black Friday deals, is that? No?
Denied. You were denied. No. An emergency truly is, think about it as a trip to the emergency room.
Right.
Or something that, the car breaks down and you've got to get to work. That's an emergency. And we start with $1,000 because that honestly contains the majority of emergencies. So a trip to the emergency room or a new set of tires, unless you're going off fancy, the tires, $800 for a new set of tires. That $1,000 tends to cover most emergencies.
Yeah.
So getting started and saving up and setting that aside, the goal is to really be able to start with that $1,000. And then you level up in the video game of life, and it goes to 3 to 6 months of your expenses. We've seen in the pandemic, those who had an emergency fund for a few months, they didn't have to panic. You know, they had a little breathing room to be able to go say, okay, I've got to go pivot and find a new job and do something, or how can I do this job at home? So just kind of having that greater capability to be able to have that. After you've got that set aside, then they talk about investing or saving for the future, for retirement, and that is 15%. So anything that you can save extra to build that up, it's a good deal.
So in other words, Amazon, you have to wait. Black Friday, wait. Target, wait.
Oh, Target.
I'm going to give you the Heisman.
Yes.
Amazon, get off me. My emergency fund is intact.
Yes. And that brings up a good question, or a good point, is that after you have an emergency, your goal is to build it back up.
Okay, I thought you were going to say, after you have an emergency, then you can spend on Amazon.
Oh, no. You're just wishing that was my answer.
No, I wish I would spend on Amazon. Like, then you can tap into those funds for some fun.
No. So build it back up. So after you deplete it for whatever reason, your goal is to build that back up. And you're usually doing that while you're paying off debt, that type of stuff.
Yeah, love that. All right, let's get going. Stephanie says, what's a good savings amount when you are living by faith?
Ooh.
Deep.
Ooh. Yeah, I feel like I need a minute on that one. So, I think those two are kind of a little different. You know, we live by faith regardless of what's in our bank accounts, I would tell you. And I would refer you back to the previous answer of have $1,000 as a first step, and then 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're always going to have faith and living by faith.
Keep walking by faith.
Yeah. Do you have any pastoral commentary as part of that you would like to add?
You know, like my financial knowledge stays within the realm of like how much should I not spend on Amazon?
Poor Amazon.
You know, I think just as very general advice, or what I would say to speak on that question, which is a great question, is kind of going back to what you were saying before, Carrie. I think, you know, every person is going to feel led in a different way, specifically when it comes to finances, right? And when it comes to even living by faith and living by faith through our finances, I think each of us I think God's going to put something different on our hearts. For example, God may put a different amount on our hearts for how much we want to give on a regular basis, right? Or how much we want to save, or how much we want to use our finances to love on others, to buy meals for people and whatnot. And the point I'm trying to make is, like what you were saying again, to reiterate what Carrie was saying, I don't know if there's one way per se, you know, and I think it's really important for each one of us individually, to really ask God those questions and to seek His answer and just to follow His guidance for our individual lives and to follow His leading. So,
yeah.
I love that question.
And there's a phrase that I love, and it's called living on God's economy. It's such a beautiful kind of a Zen thing.
Yeah.
It can be a little bit scary. Like, I quit my corporate job to do this, and like my corporate software money compared to coaching and leading people in this way, it's uncomfortable because I am living kind of paycheck to paycheck and a little off my savings right now. But I trust God's economy.
Yeah.
And I trust that He called me into this work and that He will provide.
That's right.
And want to be able to go on that vacation to New Zealand?
Mm-hmm.
Is he?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. He could be. It's absolutely possible. But being able to think about it biblically about, you know, and there's a million different references, okay, not a million, but a lot of references to money in the Bible. And if you read some of those passages, it's about being good stewards of the gifts that we're given.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say next. Just that word steward. That word came to mind.
Yeah.
You know, because when it comes to finances, like everything else God gives us in life, you know, whether it's our home, our relationships, our clothes, our vehicles, right? They're all gifts from God. They're given to us from God. And He gives them to us so that we can obviously use them and so that we can enjoy them. But I think it's healthy to keep in mind that we are stewarding these things. You know, and when it comes back to that question about, you know, living by faith when it comes to our finances and how to do that, I think starting from that place, that foundation of, okay, this is everything I have, including my finances, it belongs to God. It belongs to God. And He's entrusted me with these finances, right? He's asking me to steward these in a way that pleases Him, right? That can bless others, right? That can help me do what He's asked me to do in this world, in this life. I just think that's a great place to start, with that posture, with that heart and that mindset that God, everything that I have, including my finances, is yours. How do you want me to use this? Not just throughout my life, but on a daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely.
And PB&J is not bad. So, you know, if you gotta eat PB&J, you know, I do, it's okay. You know, there's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely. And Stephanie, thank you for bringing that question forward, because that is, like, you kind of get confused as part of that, because you want to be that good steward and want to, you know, be faithful in the use of your money, but it's not black and white as part of that. It's about hearing the voice of God and what the truth is.
There's a lot of gray, you know.
Oh, gray.
Oh, gray. Nothing's wrong with gray, you know.
I know, you're right.
Gray's cool.
Yeah.
Gray. Let's move on. Kennedy says, when preparing for marriage, what are good next steps for transitioning from individual finances to shared finances?
This is so good. And it's also kind of one of my passions. I've worked with a couple of couples who were engaged, and just like they went, you know, for pastoral counsel and marriage counseling, we talked about their finances and really talked about some next steps for them and asked them some hard questions about that. And I would tell you the first step of that, and it can be challenging, is sharing our truth. If you've got some debt, and if you've got some emotion, or if you have, and you know you have, some unhealthy behaviors around money, being able to trust your love to be with that truth in full transparency, and knowing that they will love you no matter what, that's the first step. When I first started doing some of this, I taught a Financial Peace University class, the Dave Ramsey class, for North Campus. And we had such a cool array of people that were in my living room watching these Dave Ramsey videos. And by the way, these jokes are terrible. Our jokes are way better.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
We're worse than mine, but.
Oh, these are like bad jokes. Terrible. But we had couples who were dating, couples that were newly engaged. We even had a couple in there who had 25 years of marriage. And that couple didn't actually have a language to talk about finances. So building that practice, and also sitting down and doing a monthly budget together, even when you're dating, to really talk about, okay, here are the expenses that I expect, prioritizing those types of things, starting the conversation about money early, and when you're engaged and about to be married, and to open up those conversations and talk about what would we love our life to be. You know, do we want to save for a home or kids or a dog or anything else as part of that in our couple goals?
Hashtag do the math.
So really being able to sit down, I would tell you that that's your first step, is to have those conversations, to have that level of transparency with each other, and to really be prayerful about it. honestly is the first point, Kenny, as far as really being able to do that and to invite God into that conversation. You sit down and you pray before that. And even in our video with Caitlin, you know, which I think the great picture that you captured is talking about Caitlin getting married. I think she's now Kate Rogers.
Watch the video. It's a great video.
Hey, Kate Rogers. So, you know, she talked about being married and like how do you enter into that particular conversation as part of that. You sit down and you do a monthly budget meeting. It's a great first step. That gets the conversation going. You know, sit down after dinner, bellies are full, nobody's hangry.
No,
Don't talk about money when you're hangry. So, and just put it down on the map, build a spreadsheet together. And I would also tell you, do it in partnership and love. You know, pulling up a seat for Jesus at that table. And don't admonish the other person as far as, well, you spent on this. You're a team. Be in partnership together. What are your goals? What are you going to go after? Well, this debt's going down, and then we're going to save for a down payment on a house.
Let's go! No, that's so good, Carrie, and I think you're exactly right. I think, like for any healthy relationship, right, or a marriage or a friendship, communication is so important. And honesty, open communication, and especially when it comes to finances, the topic of finances, just being transparent about that, being transparent about where you are. I feel like it's so important. So, such a great question.
Yeah, thank you, Penny. Appreciate it.
All right, hey, let's talk about Rent a little bit.
The musical? I mean, let's go. Oh, no, I won't.
Oh, I was handing the floor over to you, you know? Well, Jennifer says, what's a reasonable percent of income to spend on rent?
Such a great question. So your household, whether that is your rent or your mortgage, should be somewhere between about 35% up to 45. Probably stretch it a little bit. It just means trade-offs. So, but right in that 35, so a third of your take-home pay should kind of be allocated to that. Now, if you are just starting out in your career, Jennifer, listen, it's okay. You don't have to live in a flea-infested home. You just have to make different decisions. And here's the other thing. One of the things that I love about doing this work is giving people the freedom of choice. Everybody has things that they really feel like, I really want, this is where I want to splurge. And if that's your home, go to that higher end of the budget as part of that. 25, is probably the low end. 50 is like absolute max, like you need to be eating PB&J on the other end of that probably.
PB&J.
All day. What's that
Hashtag, do the math, PB&J.
So I would tell you guys that, really being thoughtful about that, but usually like that 35% of your take-home pay is really that sweet spot for your rent. It gives you the flexibility to pay for utilities and food and a little bit of fun, paying off any kind of like college debt and a car and gas and, medicine and all of those different categories. And again, if your home is the area where you want to splurge, then choose that. You just have to make different choices in other areas. True story? My mom. Oh, Mom.
I love you, Mom.
She's so cute. I love her. Like, I used to kind of like scoff at her that she would buy generic Doritos.
Oh,
No, not as good as like H-E-B generic, but like generic Doritos. And I'd be like, Mom. She's like, it's about choice. We go on an island vacation every year. I'm like, all right, Mom. Yeah, I mean, it's just about those trade-offs. I have a client who used to be a barista. And everybody talks about, oh, you can't spend money on coffee. Like Starbucks becomes like the quickest victim, maybe next to Amazon.
Yeah.
Like you're not allowed to buy a $5 or $6 coffee if you're on a budget. It's not true. He actually budgets for that. Going for coffee is his joy. And he budgets for it. His rent is like $1,000. And so he has $200 that he budgets for
H-E-B and chips?
I know, they're fantastic.
Off the chain.
Yes.
Off the chain.
We're so lucky.
H-E-B's chips and guac.
I know.
I'm good.
All day.
All day.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm hungry. Is it dinner time yet?
I'm hungry. We cannot be hangry either.
Oh,
That's important.
Okay.
That's important.
I know.
This is great. Okay. How about this? Let's talk about a little, maybe a touchy, difficult subject. Let's talk about debt a little bit. Can we talk about debt?
We can talk about it all day.
Let's talk about it. That's why we're here.
Yes.
Because we're with this. We're with each other in this. We
Absolutely.
can talk about these difficult topics. Is there ever a good time, Carrie, to take on debt?
That's such a loaded question. So, So there are schools of thought out there that will tell you there is good debt and there is bad debt. As an example, they say good debt is buying a house because it typically, especially in Austin, appreciates in value. So, it is an appreciating asset. Your car, not so much. Your car goes down in value. This is loaded question, so I'm trying to be really thoughtful. First I'll say it depends. Oh, I got you. But when it's a situation where you have the means to pay it off, so I'm not in I use credit cards and I pay them off every month.
Yeah.
I have a car loan, but it's a 0%.
Oh, snap.
Car loan.
Better than 29%.
Oh my goodness. Oh no. So, it's like I walked into the dealership and knew exactly what I wanted. I bought the car. I was ready to pay cash because I had the money there because I pay myself the car payment every month.
So do I, by the way.
Yeah, I put it aside so that I have that negotiating flexibility. And I know that that's not the option that everybody has, but I like having that option to be able to do it because the average car payment is like $500. So I would just pay myself $500 to be able to do that. But I walked in there and I said, I'm ready to pay cash. And he's like, what do you do for a living? I said, I'm a financial coach. And he's like, I got a 0 interest straight loan. Do you want it? Yes. Yes, I'll
do.
use somebody else's
Yes.
money. And again, this is my own personal opinion. If you have habits, I'll say, of spending, I would say avoid debt. If you know yourself as a spender, like I'm a saver naturally, if you know that you're a spender, I would say proceed cautiously as part of that. I want to also encourage you guys to think about the trade-offs with going into debt. Really being able to save for it, if possible, before you buy it, is a very powerful way to do it. I'm not personally opposed to going into debt. I just think it needs to be smart. And does it say in the Bible, know thyself? Or am I just making that up?
Know thyself. I believe it references something like that.
Yeah. You have to know yourself to know whether you can pay that debt off. If you're getting into that debt because you're like, I want it and I want it now. Oh, our instant gratification society gets us in trouble everywhere with God, quite honestly, where we're not operating on His timing. So if you're doing it and getting into debt as part of that, no, not a fan. If you are doing it strategically and you have run through all this scenarios, I'm not opposed. I have a mortgage.
Yeah.
I have a car loan.
Yeah. Some of us have student loans. I have student loans.
Yes.
And school is good.
Yes.
School is good. It's definitely something, an endeavor worth investing in. But it's a real topic, issue, right? How to pay off that student loan debt. But I love what you shared, and I think that definitely applies to various types of debt.
Yes.
And to know that even if we do have some debt, there's still some way to navigate it. Right? There's still
Yes.
hope. It's not the end all be all.
Yeah.
Right?
And especially with consumer debt, student loans is one thing. Those are usually really low interest, and you can pay those
so thankful that you are just, again, taking away the shame. And we love that you are allowing us to do that by asking these phenomenal questions. We only have time for a few more questions. We will provide you with another way to ask whatever questions we don't get to answer today. We will let you know how you can connect with Carrie outside of our time today. But for the sake of time, we only have time for one or two more questions. How about this one, Carrie? You mentioned investing earlier, which is a beautiful word. I love the idea of investing, you know. Come on, let's go. More HEB chips and guac.
Yes.
So I've paid off, not me, because I have not paid off all my debt. Student loans, hashtag student loans. You know that. I've paid off all of my debt, and I'm ready to start investing. Should I invest in a 401k or a Roth IRA? That
Yes.
Hey.
Hey. So, oh my gosh, this is delicious. So, after your debt is paid off, that's when you should start looking at investing, except for student loans and a mortgage.
Okay.
So, if you have student loans and a mortgage, you can still start investing in my book. A lot of times we'll do kind of, once the commercial debt is over, we'll do a little bit of, okay, we're going to continue to pay on student loans, continue to pay on the mortgage, and start investing. So if you have an option for a 401k at your company, and if they have matching, start there up to the max match. So let me break this down if you're not familiar with the 401k.
Please.
And by the way, it's a 403b for a nonprofit. All my church peeps, I love you.
Great point.
Lots of options for you too. But a lot of times the company will give you, wait for it, there's always some lyrics, free money.
Let's go.
They will invest up to like 3%, 5%, I've even heard of 10%. Whatever you put in, they'll match. So, by the way, my dad did that with me when I was a little kid with my allowance. I was about 7 years old, and again, I wasn't a spender back then. Any money that I put into my savings account, he would match. I was like a kid with a 401k. What?
Follow in.
Yeah. And I would like have my little passbook and watch that money grow. So really being able to take advantage of that hashtag free money that your employer is offering, I would definitely go for the 401k up to that matching max. Now, if they're going to match all of it, then there are some like max contributions per year. You can just Google 401k contribution maximum 2020, and that'll be able to share with you. Up to that match, then shift over and invest any additional amount into like a Roth, and being able to do that again up to that max. So you have a diversified portfolio, and you're taking,
love it.
I know, you're taking advantage of that free money.
Yeah.
But again, only after you paid off your debt as part of that.
Yeah. Hey, Carrie, you know what my favorite number is?
3.
Almost. Free 99.
Hey!
Hey, thank you so much for tuning in today, and thank you for the questions. Weren't these awesome
Oh my God,
questions?
you guys were the best.
Amazing. I feel like I learned so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. And we just wanted to give you a few next steps for how you can learn even more about finances in conclusion to today and just after this whole series as we've wrapped it up. First of all, let me ask you this, Carrie. If people out there had a question for you and they weren't able to ask you today, or we weren't able to ask you today, how can they connect with you and just, and get those questions answered and learn more about money management?
Shameless plug. You can follow me on Instagram. I'm learning Instagram. That's how old I am. But my Instagram is Flip Your Money Script.
Follow.
And just DM me, and we'll talk it through. And again, just be prepared when you ask me a question. I'm going to ask you 10 questions that I have to understand as part of that, because it is different for each situation. So that's the easiest way to be able to find me.
Love that. Thanks so much, Carrie. And again, thank you for joining us today. Hey, if you are in your 20s and 30s, and like I said at the top of our time today, if you just want to find other 20 and 30-year-olds in Austin that you want to connect with, that you want to develop friendships with, that you want to experience community with, you can do that here in our Anchor Network at Gateway. Not only do we have an Anchor Network here in South Austin, or at Gateway South, but we have Anchor Networks all over the city of Austin. We have an Anchor Network at our North Campus, at our Central Campus, Pflugerville, etc., etc. We have an Anchor Network and a community for you. We want you to be connected because, you know, life is fun, but not easy, and it's best to live life with others. And we want you to do that, to live life with others, and we want to serve you and love you, and just enjoy life with you. So you can connect with our Anchor here at Gateway South, right here on our Facebook Anchor page that we're live streaming on, and that you were tuning in from. Just a couple other things. You can also follow us on our Instagram. Speaking of Insta, we have a Gateway South Anchor Instagram. So follow us on Instagram. And then lastly, I mentioned community earlier, if you just want regular community on a weekly basis, and specifically community with a smaller, more intimate group of people, we have something called a community group. We have community groups here at Gateway, and we have a specific Anchor community group. So if you just, again, want to connect with 20s and 30s on a regular basis, our group meets on Thursday nights at 7 p.m. You can find out more information about that on our Anchor Facebook page. Thank you again so much for joining us. Oh, last but not least, if you would ever like to join us on a Sunday here at Gateway Church, we would love to see your face. And there are lots of cool options for how you can do that. You can tune in on Sundays online at live.gatewaychurch.com. We're also starting to have in-person services if you feel comfortable coming in person. So you can check out one of those in-person services here at Gateway South or at some of our other Gateway campuses. Thank you so much. We love y'all. We are here for you. And have a great rest of the week. Thank you, Carrie, so much. And thank you, Casey Bedell, our running logistics and tech for us today.
And shout out to Hannah Hayda for
That's
this
right.
beautiful idea.
Love y'all. Have a great rest of the night.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.